If you're a homeowner here in the Denver suburbs, especially if you're navigating this on your own, have you found yourself walking through your home lately and thinking, why does this feel different now? Maybe the kids are gone. Maybe the house feels a little too big. Maybe the stairs are starting to feel like more work than they used to. Or maybe the yard just takes more energy than you have to give it right now. And here's the part most people don't say out loud. It's not that you don't love your Denver home. It just may not fit your life the way it used to. And when that shift starts to happen, a bigger question usually follows. What am I supposed to do next? And here's where I see people get into trouble, especially the women I work with here in the Denver metro area who are making this move on their own. They feel that shift, but instead of really thinking it through, they usually do one or two things. They ignore it for far too long, and eventually the decision gets made for them. Or they make a decision too quickly, just to relieve the pressure, and then the doubts start creeping in. Neither one leads to a good outcome, because this isn't just about selling a house. It's about making a decision that affects where you live, how you live, and what your next chapter is really going to look like. And if you don't stop to think through a few important things first, this process can feel a whole lot more stressful and a whole lot more rushed than it needs to be. So before you decide to stay or decide to sell, there are a few things I want you to think about first, because this is exactly where most people get it wrong. Are you reacting to discomfort or actually ready for a change? You know, the first thing I see is people who think they're ready, but they're not quite there yet. And it usually starts with a feeling, not a plan. Something just feels off. The house feels bigger than it needs to be. Certain rooms aren't being used the way they used to. Maybe the maintenance feels heavier than it used to. And that's real. But here's where it gets tricky. That feeling doesn't always mean you're ready to move. It just means something has shifted. And what I see a lot of people do at this point is they start doing things instead of thinking things through. They start decluttering. They may scroll homes online. Oh, that one's pretty. Maybe they even talk to an agent. But underneath all of that, they're still not completely clear. So here are a couple of simple questions I want you to ask yourself. If nothing changed in your home, would you still feel this way 6 months from now? And are you moving towards something you're excited about? Or are you just trying to move away from what's starting to feel uncomfortable? Because those are two very different decisions. And when you're moving towards something, well, the process feels a whole lot clearer and a whole lot more intentional. When you're just trying to get away from something, that's when the doubts tend to creep in later. And that hesitation, well, that matters more than people realize. Because, you know, once your home hits the market, things start moving. You've got showings, you've got feedback, you've got decisions, you've got timelines. And if you're not fully grounded in why you're doing it, it can start to feel overwhelming very quickly. Point number 2, are you reacting or actually deciding? The second mistake I see people make is reacting instead of deciding. This usually doesn't feel like a mistake in the moment. It feels like, I need to do something. Maybe you're noticing homes in your neighborhood are starting to sell again. Maybe that one went quickly and you're thinking, did I just miss my window? Or you're hearing about interest rates and you're wondering if things are going to change again. Or even something more personal. The neighborhood. It just doesn't feel the same anymore. The people you knew have moved and it's just different. And all of that creates pressure. There's this quiet fear that starts to build. What if I wait too long? Or what if I make the wrong move? And when that pressure shows up, people don't slow down. They speed up. They think, I better get moving while the market's still good. But here's what happens when you make a decision from that place. You skip the planning part, and now you're trying to get the house ready, figure out where you're going, make financial decisions, and manage emotions all at the same time. And that's when selling starts to feel overwhelming, instead of something you're actually in control of. And the truth is this, you don't need to rush this. You need to understand your options before you act. And this is actually where I see a lot of relief happen for people, when we slow things down and just start looking at a few key things first, like what your home might realistically sell for, what the next move could look like, and what your timing options actually are. That's exactly why I put together the What's Next guide. It's not about pushing you to move. It's just a way to start looking at the numbers and your options without feeling rushed or overwhelmed. I've linked it below for you. Because once you can actually see the full picture, the decision stops feeling stressful and starts feeling strategic. Now, point number 3 is, have you actually thought through what comes next? And this is the biggest one. Most people haven't really thought through what happens after they sell. Not in a practical, day-to-day kind of way. They know they want something different, but they haven't fully pictured where they're going, how they want to live, what their daily life is actually going to feel like. And that's where things can start to feel uncertain, even after you've made the decision to sell. So instead of just asking, should I sell? I want you to start asking a different set of questions. Do I actually want to stay in this area? Or has my life shifted enough that a different location might make more sense? Do I want to be closer to family or friends? And have I had those conversations yet? Am I looking for less maintenance or a completely different lifestyle? And here's the big one. What do I want my day-to-day life to feel like a year from now? Because if you don't have clarity on that, then every home you look at, every offer you consider, every decision you make, feels heavier than it needs to. But when you do have that clarity, everything starts to get easier. Your decisions feel more straightforward, your timing feels more intentional, and the whole process feels a lot more manageable. So if you've been feeling that shift, like your home doesn't quite fit the way it used to, the answer isn't to rush, and it's not to ignore it either. It's to take a step back and start thinking through the right pieces in the right order. Hey, if we haven't met before, I'm Peggy Durstoff, a realtor with Live Denver Suburbs powered by HomeSmart, and I specialize in helping women over 50 make smart housing decisions without pressure and without regret, especially when they're doing it on their own. If you're starting to think about what your next move might look like, I've put together a simple What's Next guide that walks you through the key things to consider before you make any big decisions. It's really an easy place to start if you just want to get your arms around your options. And if you're still in that early stage of wondering when the timing might make sense, you might want to watch this next video where I break down what's happening in the Denver market and how that plays into your decision. As always, take your time with this. The goal isn't to move fast, it's to move right. Have a wonderful weekend, and please feel free to share this with somebody who might need it.